Zenitsu Agatsuma is the greatest demon slayer of his generation. That includes characters like Tanjiro, Inosuke, Kanao, and even the Mist Hashira Muichiro. In fact, Zenitsu's demon slaying potential is several times greater than most Hashira. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why. Now, way before Zenitsu came anywhere close to wielding a sword, he was already nothing like his friends Tanjiro and Inosuke. Tanjiro came from a family of charcoal sellers that lived on a mountain for hundreds of years, while Inosuke was raised by boars for most of his life. Zenitsu, on the other hand, actually lived in modern Japan. Well, he's not an isekai protagonist, so I don't mean today's modern Japan. More like the Taisho period, which was from 1912 to 1926. So unlike Tanjiro and Inosuke, Zenitsu knew exactly what a train was and had rode them many times before. Which is exactly why training to become a demon slayer in the mountains was so much harder for him than it was for his friends. Not only was all that different about him, but even his reason for becoming a demon slayer was completely different. While Tanjiro and Inosuke both lost family members to demons, Zenitsu never did. But at the same time, he mysteriously grew up without parents. Even though Zenitsu was voted first place in Demon Slayer's official popularity poll, we never got to see his early childhood in the series. Side note, getting first place in a series like Demon Slayer that has so many incredible characters is impressive enough. But would you believe that he even came at number 29 for the Promised Neverland's popularity poll? That's a whole different series. Anyways, Zenitsu ended up training to become a Demon Slayer because of his 7 evil ex-girlfriends. Yeah, I'm serious, this is actual Demon Slayer lore. Zenitsu had 7 beautiful girlfriends who treated him like a slave and didn't let him touch them, not even to hold hands. Thanks to this, Zenitsu went into financial debt and was in big trouble. But thankfully, some old guy decided to bail him out. That old guy was the former Thunder Hashira, Jigoro Kuwajima. In exchange, Zenitsu would be trained to become a demon slayer. Now, considering how dangerous demon slaying can be, in the comments, let us know if you'd rather risk your life hunting man-eating demons or risk your life dodging debt collectors. During the early days of Zenitsu's training, something unbelievable happened. While in a tree, Zenitsu was miraculously struck by lightning. And although this was played off like a joke, I want you guys to know that this is perhaps the most important moment in Zenitsu's entire life. Here's why. It turned his hair yellow. Now hopefully that last line didn't make you close the video, because I promise you that this is a lot more important than you think. And that's because in the world of Demon Slayer, weird natural phenomenon like this lead to some of the most powerful abilities and traits in the entire series. First off, we have birth traits, which only a few characters have. Muzan was believed to have been stillborn on account of his heart stopping multiple times while he was in his mother's womb. The Love Hashira Mitsuri Kanroji was born several times stronger than the average person. The greatest demon slayer in history, Yoriichi Tsujikuni, was born with the ability to see into the transparent world. And like Tanjiro's dad, he was born with a demon slayer mark. Tanjiro himself was born with an incredible sense of smell. Inosuke was born with the ability to weirdly contort his body. And Zenitsu was born with an incredible sense of hearing. For whatever reason, these characters had natural traits that set them apart from others. Then you have environmental traits. Muzan became the first demon thanks to the blue spider lily. Mitsuri's hair went from black to pink and green because she ate too much Sakura mochi. Shinobu altered her body to become poisonous to demons. And most commonly, several different characters have been able to manifest Demon Slayer marks. For them, this was thanks to surviving a heartbeat of over 200 beats per minute and a body temperature of over 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Zenitsu's environmental condition was one of the most powerful natural phenomenon known to man, lightning. Considering what a flower and a fever could do for others, it's not hard to believe that being struck by lightning did more for Zenitsu than just changing his hair color. From there, even Zenitsu's training was completely different. And that's because he wasn't the only one training. There was also Kaigaku, his senior trainee and bully. Zenitsu had an actual sparring partner to work against, one that actually hated his guts. So you already know that Kaigaku was not holding back. The closest thing Tanjiro had was a giant boulder, which he kinda made friends with and saw dead people, and it's never properly explained in the series. But hey, if you guys can get this video to 4,000 likes, we'll make a whole video explaining all that and more. Anyways, most people believe that Zenitsu is a coward, which totally makes sense. I mean, he's always crying and complaining, isn't he? Well, if you think he's a coward, I'm sorry to say it, but you don't understand Zenitsu at all. Zenitsu is not a coward. In fact, I challenge you to find me even a single time Zenitsu's been a complete coward. It just doesn't exist. Hear me out. Zenitsu admits to hating himself for his feelings of fear and uneasiness. But at the same time, he doesn't believe in hiding pain or sadness no matter how strong someone is. So Zenitsu just wears his heart on his sleeves and doesn't pretend to be something he's not. But despite always being afraid, Zenitsu never abandons others. Even when he cowered behind Shoichi inside the drum house, not only did he protect the kid when it came down to it, but he also made the boy protect himself. Because Zenitsu seemed to be so overwhelmingly incompetent and undependable, Shoichi was forced to get himself together for the sake of their survival. And after only interacting with Tanjiro for a very brief time, Zenitsu, thanks to his incredible senses, could easily tell that he was pure of heart. And on account of that, was brave enough to endure being beaten by Inosuke while protecting Nezuko's box. All he knew was that there was a demon inside. He even expected Nezuko to be hideous and terrifying, but he never stopped protecting her for Tanjiro's sake. And if Inosuke actually managed to knock Zenitsu unconscious, who knows how things would have gone. But more on that in a bit. Point is, Zenitsu is a really honest guy who doesn't try to hide how he feels. It's also why he has the craziest reactions and outbursts in the entire series. And when his nerves and fear become too overwhelming, he falls unconscious. Like a killer whale, Zenitsu pretty much shuts off half of his brain and lets his body handle the rest. The parts of his brain responsible for pain, fear, and every sense aside from hearing become numb. This allows Zenitsu to tap into his full, unrestricted demon-slaying potential. The closest we have ever seen to something like this was the dead calm Yoriichi naturally possessed, which is pretty good company if you ask me. Zenitsu went from being totally unconscious at the beginning of the story to aware and able to communicate while still dulling his brain function during the Daki fight to completely aware and totally fearless by the end of the series. And oddly, instead of having the typical talking crow, Zenitsu's wasn't even a crow at all. It was a sparrow, one that couldn't even talk. But since it would have needed to pass the Demon Slayer crow test to even get this far, it's honestly pretty impressive. Either way, Zenitsu's strange Demon Slayer training also yielded strange results, because for whatever reason, he only managed to learn one form of thunder breathing. The first form, Thunder Clap and Flash. With it, the user dashes forward in a straight line to decapitate a target. But despite only managing to master one of the original 6 forms of thunder breathing, Zenitsu was good enough for the former Hashira to send him to final selection at the same time the former water Hashira Orokodaki sent Tanjiro. And I'm willing to bet that Zenitsu was the first person to ever pass final selection with his eyes closed. Impressively, he was able to use 3 variations of this one form. Sixfold was when he used the form 6 times in rapid succession as the speed and power of his dashes increased with each. Eightfold was the same thing, but 8 times instead of 6. Godspeed was the utmost limit of the first form that Zenitsu's body could handle. By pushing the muscles in his legs to their utmost limits, Zenitsu was able to take the speed of his attack to new heights. At first, he could only use this 2 times before ruining his legs, but by the end of the series, he could use it even more than that. And considering Zenitsu was only 16 years old at the time, he was still nowhere close to his physical prime. So in theory, his muscles could eventually be able to handle this move dozens of times over. And now I want you guys to understand how badass this aspect of Zenitsu really is. If we change the context from swordsmanship to gunslinging, Zenitsu is the equivalent of a speedy shooter that only aims for the head. He's the guy that unsheaths his sword faster than you can realize he's chopped off your head. And now, despite all that he's managed to do with it, there are still a lot of people that look down on Zenitsu for only managing to master the first form. But what those people fail to understand is that this was Zenitsu's choice. Kind of. Jigoro was like a grandfather to Zenitsu and the only family he ever had. Because of this, he wanted to use thunder breathing no matter what and stuck with it. Even some of the most talented demon slayers in this series aren't well suited for the original breathing forms. Plenty of Hashira like Muichiro, Mitsuri, Obanai, Tengen, Kanae, and Shinobu all have unique breathing styles derived from the originals that are more suited to them personally. Tengen's sound breathing comes from thunder breathing and even benefits from his incredible sense of hearing. Zenitsu could have very well trained to learn this one or created another from it like flower breathing to insect breathing. Fun fact, Zenitsu, as part of his training with Tengen, was made to create a hot spring for the former Hashira and his harem. And what kept Zenitsu inspired was the thought of seeing Tengen's 3 wives naked. Anyways, he could have even used 2 breathing styles like Tanjiro does with sun breathing and water breathing. But instead, he chose to stick with thunder breathing alone. And when it came down to it, Zenitsu did something truly incredible. He was the first person to create a new form of thunder breathing, the 7th form, Honoikazuchi no Kami. With it, the user dashes forward at incredible speeds for a single slash at a low stance, resulting in what looks like a yellow dragon shaped like a lightning bolt. The only other character to create a totally new form for one of the original breathing styles was the Water Hashira Gyu Tomioka. And Zenitsu used this new form to make history yet again by killing an upper rank demon, something that prior to him and the Mist Hashira Muichiro hadn't been done for hundreds of years, much less in a one-on-one fight. What's truly amazing is the fact that Zenitsu, for as powerful as he'd become by the end of the story, never manifested a Demon Slayer mark, which to me only makes this feat all the more impressive. Zenitsu is the first person in the history of the Demon Slayer Corps to have defeated an Upper Moon demon by himself without a Demon Slayer mark. And I want you to know that if we were to give Zenitsu a Demon Slayer mark, he would be the strongest member in the organization. And that's even compared to the Hashira, who have died. I say this because of what a Demon Slayer mark truly provides. First, there's the benefit of turning his weapon bright red. This would allow him to limit the regeneration of demons and overall increase the damage potential of his weapon. Next, it provides the user with incredible physical strength, the multiplier of which could very well be about 100 times stronger if Tanjiro's word is anything to go by. And based on how it affected Muichiro when he first developed it, a Demon Slayer mark is also capable of enhancing a person's speed several times over as well, even bringing them up to speeds comparable to an upper ranked demon. And we all know how impactful speed is on Zenitsu's fighting capabilities. And finally, there's a possibility to see into the transparent world, an ability that not only allows a person to perceive the inner workings of other bodies, but lets them observe all worldly movement in slow motion, which provides an excellent boost in reaction time, and again, a bonus to movement speed. And since Zenitsu's senses are already well above average, being able to hear things on the other side of town with just a bit of focus, a power-up like this would be monumental. I mean, even without it, Zenitsu can already tell a demon from a human, detect emotions, personality, and even thoughts. Any more than that, and his opponents would think that he could see into the future. Understand that narratively, Zenitsu absolutely could not be allowed to manifest a Demon Slayer mark, and that's because he'd be way too powerful. And now that you know all about Zenitsu, you should definitely check out this video to really understand why his wife Nezuko was Muzan's worst nightmare.